Welcome back to another exciting installment of Talk No Jutsu.
Couldn't get that right on the first try.
Nope. Failure. I am failure.
Yes, dog, go. Pant into the mic.
Yeah, excuse any jingling you may hear.
The dogs, the good boys, are up and about.
Yeah, very cute.
Oh, nope.
My exact
Thrilling
mood.
new update. The dog has lied down.
I think the correct English is lay down or laid. It's in the past tense, not the present.
Fuck off.
Anyways, so we're back for another exciting installment, as I said earlier. This time, more on manga and all about it. This time, more specifically on the accessibility of manga in the English-speaking world.
Specifically, we're going to be going into a lot over like what few manga streaming sites exist and how they're not really up to snuff with other industry streaming.
Yeah, exactly. And we will be talking about manga, web novels, manhwa, and webtoons, since they're all...
It's going to be mostly manga because that's what we have the most exposure to. And I do think it's getting better with light novels, and manga has not got the same problems manga has.
No, but I do have a few examples in terms of like webtoons and web novels.
A lot of that we brought up as counterpoints to manga. Manga specifically is where the issues are, though. I think that's what parts of this discussion is going to be.
Yeah, and I think like I said, to get into it, so there are a lot of ways to watch anime. You can watch anime on Netflix, HBO Max, Hulu, Crunchyroll, Verve collects Crunchyroll and several other websites. All of these are legal ways to watch it. You can also buy DVDs, right?
Yeah.
And some sites even release their some episodes of their anime onto YouTube.
But the thing about the streaming service as opposed to buying, say, the Blu-rays or the DVDs is that it leaves a lot of room for experimentation and like, I'm just going to find an anime that's currently airing and give it a look.
Yeah, you're getting a good deal for what you're spending.
Yeah.
Like the catalog that you get on Verve is incredibly large for the amount of money you're spending.
You're never going to watch it all. Because you're not ever going to watch it all, you always have something to go look for to try to find something new.
However, with that being said, there is no manga website that is legal in terms of translations, that is easily accessible in the way that streaming services are. There are no websites in the English-speaking world where you can pay a subscription fee and just read anything in their catalog.
There is, but they're really unintuitive.
There is not a manga website where you can pay and read everything on the website.
See, I don't count, and this is, gosh, we're getting to this really early. I don't quite count that as being part of their catalog, though. Even if they display it, it just means that it's offered there for sale. You can get, like, Netflix, especially early on, you could do the physical rentals from Netflix, but they didn't necessarily have it physically.
True. But, and I know what we're talking about. So right now we're specifically talking about Shonen Jump.
Yeah.
But even in Shonen Jump, you cannot read all of the things that were published in Shonen Jump. You can read a selection of what is currently being published and what is incredibly popular still. You cannot read every title that they've published.
I guess that gets onto our first streaming site, the Viz Shonen Jump site.
Yeah. So Shonen Jump is obviously a really well-known kind of company. Like they do the Shonen Jump magazine, which no longer publishes in the US, which is unfortunate, but you know.
The trade-off, I think, right now is the Viz Shonen Jump site, where they have a lot of that same kind of selection available.
Exactly.
For like, you pay a subscription and you can read, what was it, up to like
100 chapters a day. So we actually spent quite a few hours looking this up a couple weeks back. Because it's kind of like when you think about supporting authors, pirating, but then the accessibility of supporting authors in a different language if you're speaking a different language.
Let's be honest here. Without streaming sites, everybody would be pirating anime. That would be the norm. Exactly.
And so I went in and got the subscription for Shonen Jump Viz, right? And it's $2.99 a month or $1.99 a month. And you can read 100 chapters a day, and it resets every day of any one of their catalog of, I think what we counted up was that there were 40 to 60 things you could read.
Yeah.
And they were all things that were either currently being published in Shonen Jump, right? Or had recently finished being published but were still incredibly popular. Like you could read Naruto, even though it's not publishing anymore. And you could read it in English and you can read all the chapters. But of course, you also have to consider, One Piece was an option, I think. But One Piece has almost 1,000 chapters. And depending on how fast you read in a day and how much you want to read, 100 chapters could be a limit, but I think it's very unlikely.
Yeah, it's a pretty liberal limit, I think.
Yeah, it's liberal, and you're only paying $1.99 a month. So if you're really into a bunch of titles that are available in Shonen Jump magazine, it is a great value. It would actually be a fairly good value for me in particular, because I do read quite a few of the things that were available for that $1.99 a month, right? But the flip side is it is like old Netflix. So Viz in the US is like one of the main manga publishers. And they even publish English manga that they don't necessarily own as part of Shonen Jump. They publish it in contract with other companies. So they publish a ton of stuff that you do not find on Shonen Jump. So you could look up something like, say, Atomen. I give it because nobody really knows what it is. They will sell you the manga, but you cannot read it with your subscription. And I would say a good 90% of the manga they list on that website is buy, not read with your subscription.
I think part of that, though, is that's separate from this. Because the Shonen Jump thing is its own service.
It's what they own.
That's the service. Whereas the digital online bookstore, that is a completely different service in my mind.
It is.
So I don't... They're even separated on the website.
Yeah.
Like if you go find the same Shonen Jump titles in their bookstore, they don't even give you the option of doing the Shonen Jump stream.
No, it is entirely separate. And also that brings me to another point about the website. It is incredibly hard to get to the stuff that they offer free.
Yeah.
Like it took me 30 minutes clicking around on that website. And of the manga that they're offering, so they're offering digital copies of the manga.
Yeah.
And while I understand and want to support the creators, I have a hard time believing that I should spend as much for a digital as I would for a paper copy. And $7 to $10 a book, because it is $6.99 to $9.99 depending on the book series they're selling. Obviously, some of that is not their fault. It's the other publishers. But I don't feel comfortable spending $10 on a PDF.
Because I think manga piracy is worse than anime piracy.
Oh,
not in terms of
100%.
moral value, but like in terms of how many people do it.
Yeah. And so I personally would not pay $10 for an online copy of a book that I'd pay $10 for.
In theory, the Shonen Jump $1.99 thing is a really good service. Like I think the 100 chapter thing is a bit arbitrary and stupid. But overall, it's not. But it's a good service for your buck.
And when you think that a normal anime volume publishes 8 to 12 chapters, so you can read about 8 to 10 volumes.
More chapters I'd probably read in a day.
Yeah, like this is the equivalent of 8 to 10 books in a day.
My only issues with it come in how like little it's like. You hear about like Bookwalker from Kadokawa, I believe it is, or Crunchyroll and Verve from like all these advertisements. You never see this Shonen Jump service advertised anywhere.
No, it really isn't. And it's hard to find on the website. And it is almost impossible to get to the point where they have a list of stuff you can read.
It's almost like they're hiding.
Yeah.
And that's my first major issue with it, is it's like, it's a good service that's being hidden, which raises the question of why. Like this is the closest thing out of everything we're going to talk about today to like a Netflix of anime. And even then, I put it more at a Disney Plus of anime.
And I will say the one thing I wish it had that early Netflix had, it doesn't have a rental option. I almost wish that I could like rent a book for like a certain amount of money, because I'm still paying, you know? And I mean, I get that like you rent a PDF and then you can make copies and send it to people or whatever.
I think that's a matter of it wasn't at the Netflix age when it wasn't at the rental age ever, and that's where your library would be at.
Yeah, rental's not really a thing anymore.
And it's past that age for Netflix, so you're never going to quite get that back.
Yeah, but you know, in that vein, like for example on Google Play, right? When I watch movies, some movies I buy, and some movies I rent. Like I don't need to spend $19 on certain movies.
Oh, you mean digital rentals? Like
digital rentals. Yeah. Sorry, did you
I
think
meant
I
like,
meant physical?
you meant like physical. Like I'm gonna ship this
Oh,
film out.
fuck no.
and get
Okay.
it.
I have a comment on this. I will not even get rental textbooks. I cannot stand the idea of renting something like a textbook or a book and having to send it back because I will not. I just
that service
won't.
is just the library. Just go to your local public library and look at their anime. They have a manga selection usually.
Incidentally, y'all, almost every single public library has a free online website that you can sign up for and get digital copies of tons of books and manga. And also, I read the entire One Piece manga by going to the library and ordering it in sets of 20 volumes at a time to be shipped to my local library, and then I'd go pick them up, read them, and return them. So your library is an amazing way to read manga.
I don't think this needs to be said, but that's not an advertisement. That's a public service announcement. Although advertisers, if you're listening, it shows off our ability to advertise.
Yeah, I do really encourage the public library model if you can, because you don't have to pay anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can rent these books and then return them,
It's a little old-fashioned, but also it's a really good.
Yeah.
Go to your public library, people.
Get
on it.
You can even order them online to come into your library. They'll notify you when you're there, and all you have to do is walk in, pick them up, and walk out. Like, you don't even need to talk to people. You don't even have to drop them off back in the library. Most libraries have drop boxes. Okay, enough of the public service announcement. Go to your library. Anyways, so the whole digital thing, I said I wouldn't pay $7 for a digital copy of a book that I could buy in paper for $2 more. And that's me personally. I prefer paper books, especially manga, because I find that trying to read manga in a PDF format often is a little bit harder because the pages are odd sometimes.
Yeah.
Like it's a little weird. That's just my opinion.
I do think when we're looking at the Shonen Jump service in particular, though, its biggest Achilles heel is the fact that it's got the same kind of issues of, say, a Shonen Jump magazine, where its selection is
limited and specific.
Like, yeah, you're going to have some things on there that aren't shonen battle anime, but a large majority of the biggest hitters on that list are shonen battle.
45 out of 50. But I will say, when I was counting on the Shonen Jump website, there were approximately 50, I'd say, that you could read for free, which is a good amount of series. But of the 50, only about 5 of them were something that I would consider not typical Shonen Jump.
Yeah, you're not getting... There's stuff that you're not getting in Shonen Jump that you would be getting in, say...
Shoujo Beat.
Yeah.
Or Shoujo Jump.
Other magazines
or Seinen
that don't
Jump.
have a streaming service associated with them. And that is a bit of a tragedy that the best manga streaming service we have right now has such a horribly limited selection.
Yeah.
That's why I consider it more of a Disney Plus than a Netflix.
Yeah. Alternatively, the other thing that has to do with pirating is some mangas don't get English translations, or they're not sold in English anymore. For example, I read Get Backers and The Wallflower, and I was on Amazon the other day because I managed to find at my local used bookstore a used lot of Wallflower, like the first 20 books except for book 17, all at once, right? Which is incredibly rare because it's not published anymore. And I went to look on Amazon for book 18 because I wanted to complete my first 20, right? Well, the only person selling book 18 on Amazon was selling it for $200 for a single volume. And I'm not going to pay that. So if I want to read volume 18 of this manga, I will go on a website where I can find volume 18's chapters. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to spend $200 to buy an out-of-print manga that is used. Mangas are not collectibles in the same way that like a trading card is.
No.
You know, it doesn't work the same way. So, you know, when a manga is not officially translated into English or when it's out of print, often your only option is some sort of website online. And unfortunately, most companies, once a series goes out of print, they don't often release it anymore, even online. Like there are certain series that I could not buy as PDFs even if I wanted to. And that's just a fact of life. And I think I don't condone pirating. I don't think it's a good idea, but when you have no other option other than to just not consume it.
I also think the piracy problem of manga is very like I can't condone pirating at all. But let's be real here. Your price, it's such a high monetary barrier of entry. It's probably one of the like you don't get as many novel volumes as you get manga volumes. If you want to do a series, you're paying for 5, 6, maybe 7 or 8 novels. Manga, they can go on for so damn long, and let's be real here. That's a lot of money to buy every single one of them.
Exactly.
So manga, more so than novels, I think, is in a lot more need of a streaming service.
But at the same time, so this is where I bring in one of my web novel webtoon examples in relation is, so I have the Webtoons app. Mm-hmm. I also happen to have the T.H.E app and the web novel app. So Webtoons is the first app that came to the English language that officially published web comics, right? Which it can be manhwas as well. It just depends. They're often adaptations of web novels, which are often also get turned into anime and manga. And on Webtoon, which is run by Narver, you can access all of the episodes normally, except for what they call Fast Pass episodes, or it's the most recent 1 to 5 episodes, right? Which if you want to access them early, you pay coins, and you have to buy coins or earn them in the app. Right? And those do go to the creator. So I think that's a great, and because it's only the last couple chapters, I think that's a fantastic way to do it. Because if you can't afford it, it just means you're going to be waiting a week or 2 longer.
I mean, it's basically
but you're still getting them.
Crunchyroll and Verve uses if you're not paying. The subscription model is you get all access to all episodes except for like the most recent one.
Exactly. And I think that's fantastic, especially because on web novel, it's quite cheap. Mm-hmm. But I also have, not web novel, Webtoon, but I have web novel and T.H.E. T.H.E is where I would conservatively say 85% of webcomics are published officially. It is officially licensed, but on T.H.E you can only read up to chapter 10 or 12 in anything. And after that, every chapter is by pay, and you can't just wait for it to become public.
And that's sort of the same place that manga finds itself in, except manga's got somewhat even more ass-backwards systems. Mm-hmm. Like, what was it? One site we saw, and I've seen it before, it was like the one that got us on this topic originally, was the site where you can only read for free the most recent chapters. Yeah,
you could only read like the recent 3 chapters.
And then like and I think maybe it was also the first 3, but you're like missing out the entire middle section.
And in the case of something like One Piece, that's just not going to fly.
No.
You're missing 860 episodes or more. You know, it's not good. And just to mention it, web novel does the same thing as T.H.E. Also, web novel is the only, I have yet to find an officially licensed English web novel site that does not run on the model that T.H.E and web novel do. Typically, every single English web novel site I've seen runs on a episode by subscription.
Yeah.
Or pay by chapter.
It's a little odd with web novel, but I think that's a difference in like you don't see the same web novel industry. Like you have the equivalent of manga, comics, cartoons for anime. The equivalent for web novel in the West and English territories is literally Wattpad, which is a very different beast.
Yeah, so I mean, I get it, but it does run. Just beware for those of you that want to read web novels. It's going to be like T.H.E, or you're going to have to pirate it.
The more common, like if we're looking at like the equivalent of books, the most similar one, like moving it over here, would probably be light novels, which there are sites such as Bookwalker, mm-hmm. and that functions more like your average ebook website, and it makes sense. Books, I don't think you can consume books as quickly as you can consume a manga.
No, which makes
even
sense.
An anime. You could finish most animes in the time span it takes to finish a big novel, unless you're Seki.
Sorry, this is just a difference in reading speed. I just read incredibly fast.
The difference between the 90% of the population is Seki.
Like I said, I'm sorry. I just read incredibly fast. So for me, it's the opposite way around. It's much faster for me to read a novel.
So you're not consuming novels as quickly. So a streaming service with novels would be kind of counterintuitive because you're not finishing those novels in the time.
Yeah.
slow readers, you might
But
spend a
also,
full month on that
you know,
novel.
web novel chapters are only like a page long, so.
Yeah, it's just the problem with web novels is its publishing style is most equivalent to fan fiction and Wattpad.
No, that's fair.
Individual creators shooting it up.
That's fair. But I will say webtoons though are very similar to manga.
Yeah.
Manhwa and manga.
Not the same though, because webtoons also function somewhat on that Wattpad style, I believe.
Yeah.
Depending on some of the manhwas.
Webtoons also tend to come out faster.
Yeah.
They come out faster and more often, so I get it. But
there's less of a giant corporate publishing industry behind manhwa, I believe.
Yeah. But for example, let's take the webtoon example. If I could access like a website, right? And what Naver did was they just bought the rights to publish in English all these different things, or they contact the writers directly and ask if they'd like to be put on their site. If there was a manga version of that where maybe it's just the last volume or two, or the most recent chapters were by pay, that would be incredibly good, especially if they became free over time.
The idea that it's a more broad manga service that isn't just one genre
publisher.
And publisher.
Yeah.
And it's not one publisher. We know, like that's the topic of the next episode is the publishing situation.
The publishing.
But it's just one specific. It's basically a genre.
It's a genre, yeah.
It's a genre as published by a specific publisher.
It's also a genre that's very divisive. I will say shonen is one of the most divisive genres, just because it has a tendency. It has a general tendency.
I don't know.
To
get a lot of I see a lot of apprehension to shonen, but I also see that same kind of apprehension towards idol or slice of life. Everyone has their own hang-ups about different genres. I think it's very rare you have a genre as broad enough to not have contentions.
Yeah, but I think in the case of idol, you often get idol and like it's an idol romance or an idol comedy or an idol shoujo or an idol hentai or.
Yeah, it's the truth. I'm sorry about that.
Sorry.
No, we're not going into that.
I was listing things. Whereas with shonen, I think, okay, I spoke wrong. Shonen isn't necessarily more divisive, but the reputation of shonen is a little more divisive as a word.
It's because shonen is less of a genre and more a series of tropes.
Yeah, and I think the problem some people have is you hear shonen, and a lot of people will automatically think of things that are either A, incredibly popular and fighting, or B, incredibly long and fighting. And I do think that there is an element of the word shonen itself misleading some people.
It's unfortunately the way shonen is structured, it isn't the most outwardly diverse of genres.
Yeah. So I think having only that option, like only the weekly shonen, is really limiting.
Now,
if you, for example, I would say this to Nick Nack. If I had known about this service before Nick Nack and he asked me about a service, I would absolutely not recommend this to him because there are not enough series on here for it to be worth it for him to pay a separate subscription. I would let him use mine.
Yeah, not for more than I might use it for like a month or two to like read Demon Slayer or something, or to read Hero Aka if that's on. I think that they're both on there.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't it's not something I keep consistently going the same way I keep some anime subscriptions going or.
And my problem with the site is that yes, there's 50 anime that I can, or 50 manga that I can read. What happens when I'm done with those? There's no extensive catalog that I can explore into.
There's no trash to distract you from finishing all the good shit at once.
Exactly. So you finish all the good shit and then you have nothing left. So I would just drop the subscription after finishing it all.
Yeah. It's not a very sustaining amount of content, I think. And that's where we move on to other streaming services, which have a lot more problems, but try to get closer to what we're talking about.
Yeah, so I think we found one other one that counted. It was by Shueisha or Katakawa or somebody?
No, there were two. There was the Shueisha one I think it was No, there was one for Shueisha. No, Shueisha didn't count. Shueisha did not count.
Okay.
Shueisha was like very limited. Kadokawa was the one that had their own manga streaming service, I believe. And the other one was the Amazon's Comixology. Those were the two that were the closest to a manga streaming service.
That's it.
And they both had very unique problems, and we got in a huge debate over this one.
Yes. So I'll just bring them up to refresh us on how they're different. So Comixology is a Kindle Fire browser. It's manga, basically. And it actually, it's more broad than just manga because it includes Marvel, DC, Image, like other comics. So it's pretty much all visual.
Manga, but it's also it's got an okay manga selection, but it's more like Netflix bringing in anime than it is Crunchyroll.
Yes. However, on Comixology, there is no subscription. You get to read stuff.
Yeah, there is. It's just not for all the stuff on there.
I thought that was the one that didn't have.
No, Comixology is the Amazon one.
Okay, I'm looking.
I know because I still get emails from them.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so Comixology has two forms. Comixology and Comixology Unlimited.
Yeah.
So Comixology Unlimited are the things that you can outright read without paying. However, Comixology has the website itself has a massive amount of, so I remember how much it was. There are 2,400 titles available on Comixology. However, only 240 of them are available on Unlimited. And you have no say in which ones are available.
Well,
and of that 240...
I consider that a worse UI version of what we saw with the Biz site, where there was almost two different sites there. Yeah,
so 10% of the site you can read for free. But of that 10%, right, we did look through. And of those 240... we differed a bit in numbers as to what we recognized as like actual things. But I think what we finally settled on was there were approximately 60 to 70.
Which, being fair, is about the size of the catalog on Shonen Jump.
It's the same size. And then there were 60 to 70 that we recognized as
I'm sure there's titles. A lot more that we just didn't.
Yeah, so 60 to 70 that between our experience, we recognized as titles that were either good or that we knew of like as a thing.
And they've got big hitters on there, like Attack on Titan's on there.
Yeah, they do have a couple big things. Like even I saw some stuff I remember. I think Great Teacher Onizuka, one of them was on there, and some others. But you also do have to wade through that extra almost 200 of, oh God.
Let's get to the big issue of it. Yeah. They don't separate manga and American manga style. It's kind of like what Netflix does with its Castlevania thing.
Yeah.
Except because they have the American comics industry is so large, there's a lot of manga style comics, and not having them separated like that make it really hard. Like they have a Star Wars comic in there with the manga section because it's done in a more manga style. That's not people go to that manga section to look for.
So the issue is that you're only getting a small percentage of the catalog, same as Viz, but Viz is more honest about it because you're only getting Shonen Jump titles, whereas Comixology is like, oh, you get a bunch of this stuff free. But when you look, it's a very select section, and it can be confusing because you will also get comics.
Its big pluses is that it does have a pretty diverse selection, more so than Shonen Jump, I find.
Yeah, and the subscription isn't that expensive, I believe.
No, Comixology is a pretty decent price. It wasn't cheap. Like Shonen's is $1.99. Comixology's is I think it was
either $3.99 or $4.99.
Yeah, it's still compared to Shonen Jump, it's a pretty sizable amount more. You're getting a little bit less bang for your buck.
Yeah. So that was acceptable. That was entirely acceptable. I mean, I get it.
We'll get to Shueisha when we get there. Let's go to Kadokawa next.
Oh,
because Kadokawa was the other one that could count as an actual streaming site, if I remember right.
Comic Walker was Kadokawa's.
Yes, it's the equivalent of Kadokawa's Book Walker.
Yeah, so it is entirely free. But when we went on Comic Walker, we found like 20 series total. There were 2 pages of results for the whole website, and the pages were only, I think, 20 series each. So there were maybe 40.
Yeah, and these aren't a lot of big hitter series either.
No.
It's a extremely limited selection. It technically counts as a streaming service because it is still...
You do get one of the Mobile Suit Gundams and Sergeant Frog, and like one other big name that I noticed. But
there's a reason you hear Kadokawa's Book Walker thrown around a lot more than their Comic Walker, and that's because Kadokawa does not have, as far as their Comic Walker site goes, as good of a catalog as their Book Walker does.
Yeah,
that's why it's a completely different model.
Yeah, it's just not worth it.
It's more an excuse to drive traffic away from piracy sites, if I remember with the research we did.
Yeah, it's just not.
Sorry,
Shut up, Siri.
Oh my God.
I sounded my phone and I still got Siri.
That happens so much. That's like a thing.
Comicsology, it's free, so if there's something on there you like, just go on there, read it there. But it's not the solution to the manga streaming issue.
Yeah, it's really not.
And then there's the bottom layer of hell, Shueisha.
Manga Plus. What I will say for this is, so this is Shueisha. It's called Manga Plus. It came out as an app. It is the newest of all of the sites, and it owns up to that. So it, as an app, knows that it is brand new, and it does not have many licensing allowances. I'm currently on it, and they do have a fair few big names. But if I take a look,
If I remember, wasn't this the one with all the restrictions on it that we were talking about earlier?
yeah. So you get the first 3, and then you get the last chunk.
Yeah, it's not a streaming site, guys.
No,
It's not a streaming site. What it is a catalog, basically. It's a digital catalog.
Exactly. You're not able to read whatever you want. You get a certain amount. So, for example, I'm looking at Hitman Reborn. You get episodes 1, 2, and 3, and then you get episodes 71 to 77, and that's it. So that's how it is on every single one of them. You get the first 3 and the last 5.
Now, being fair, the first 3 and last 5 are completely free, and everything else is paid for. And we wouldn't have a problem if this were like the free app version, but there's no subscription offered to like read the rest. You're paying for every single one of those like you're buying.
Yeah.
Ooh. Oh, that was dinner. Buying the full PDF.
Yeah, you're not getting an option.
And so it's not a streaming site.
Yeah.
No.
And also, it is a lot of the things that they offer the first and last for, they do not have options yet to buy it.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is because licensing. Shueisha, I believe they want to be able to license series from some of the other major publishers.
It's not going to catch on like this.
Yeah, they want this to turn into an almost Verve-like app, I think.
It's got a long way to go. I hope it gets better over time.
Yeah, I mean, it's a baby. I will be watching it. But at the moment, it's not.
And
so,
Shueisha, like the titles they do have there.
Shueisha has a fair amount of good titles.
Yeah.
But it's still, the problem is the variety that most people, manga has one thing that like American novels don't. It's much easier in manga to get into a vast variety of things because they're so much easier to consume. And on a pirating site, you can really get into everything. You can get super specific, you can go super general. And so I think a lot of people are used to pirating sites where the options are so wide and varied that to limit yourself down to what's available from Shueisha or Shonen Jump is not worth it.
It's the closest we have is like Disney Plus, and even that's like for streaming services. Even that's better than what we have for Shonen Jump because it's a higher catalog.
Yeah, because honestly, if Disney Plus if they didn't open the Disney Vault for Disney Plus, I would not have gotten the subscription.
Like if we had literally everything that's ever published in Shonen Jump on that Shonen Jump site,
100%, I would pay that.
It could raise a few extra bucks, and I would still pay it.
I for every single thing that Shonen has ever published since 1954 or whatever, or 1960, I would pay $9.99 a month.
Yeah.
I would
everything
pay.
They even have the rights to publish still.
Yeah, I would pay $9.99 a month, hands down. I wouldn't even complain.
But they don't quite offer that.
Yeah.
And the thing is, and we're gonna get into this more in the next episode.
Yeah.
It's not like the rights are all over the place. There are really 3 major publishing industries or publishing corporations in Japan.
Yeah.
A lot of most of the stuff is published by them. If one of these big publishing corporations created an app, they have basically control of the market. They could charge a decent amount of money.
Well, I said this to Nick Knack. We will talk about each individual one in the next episode.
Yeah.
But for example, knowing what I know about what they publish, I would pay up to $19.99 a month even for a subscription to everything that any one of the 3 published.
That's a bit sizable, but
If I could get access to everything they have published in their magazines, I feel that $19.99 a month would be justified.
man, I'd only go up to maybe $9.99 a month, and that's going off of like the highest, like, because I'm basing it off of the highest like video streaming service I can think of at the moment.
That's fair, but I'm also considering the fact that like I do want that I know in the case of some of these, I have extensive knowledge of just how many things that I love that they publish that are now discontinued as physical series.
I think the difference is it's a supply and demand thing. You can consume enough manga to make your buck back at $19.99. No way I could.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. That's also one of the reasons why I hate streaming services sometimes, the prices I pay for them, because I kind of hop from service to service on like a monthly basis, and I'll like stick it out for like a whole month on a certain service and then switch. And so that almost makes the other ones not worth it during the months when I'm not using them. I consume TV at a far slower rate than I do books. So for me, the TV subscriptions are a lot of money.
I mean, I don't consume that much TV. The thing about the TV subscription is it's cheaper to maintain a TV subscription than it is to maintain like a constantly updating catalog of movies on DVD and Blu-ray.
Yeah.
So having the option to watch things is easier than maintaining the catalog.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Now, I still wouldn't pay $19.99 for any video streaming service. Oh, hell no.
Okay, I would list the reason why I would pay $19.99 for a streaming service. Hulu, right? Hulu, if it included Starz, Showtime, and HBO, I would pay $19.99 a month. And I mean all of the HBO content over all the HBO platforms.
Yeah,
if you got that package.
I'd be surprised if Hulu carries the HBO package coming up soon to their own streamers.
Yeah.
That's not really on topic, though.
Yeah.
Disney owns the world.
Manga is not easily affordable to the American audience in a wide variety. Mm-hmm. It is available in limited variety at a relatively good rate. But there is no site like Verve currently.
Manga really does need to move into the streaming age if it wants to start to curb piracy.
I think the other thing is the three major publishers that we'll talk about in our next video need to come to some sort of compromise. Either they need to compromise with one another, or they need to be willing to make their entire catalog part of the site, past and present.
Yeah, the issue is they're never gonna give a sizable amount of their catalog to like a third party like Netflix to put up.
Yeah, but even if each of the three of them ran their own sites, if they offered everything past and present, a subscription to any one of them could be worth it.
I think Kadokawa might struggle with that more than Shueisha or Kodansha would.
I think it'll depend. We'll see.
Because Kadokawa, and then we'll get into this more next time, Kadokawa is a lot more known for their light novels, in which case it's a very different industry.
Oh, but even, oh God, I would pay for a better site than web novel because it's really bugging me that I can't read chapters.
I would say that, well, the solution for that is, web novels, that's a completely different beast. That's different from light novels.
Yeah, I know, but...
Like most web novels are similar to Wattpad.
Yeah.
That's why you're not seeing a good streaming service for web novels.
It's just one of those things. But, I mean, with that being said, that's kind of our summation on manga availability to an English-speaking audience.
Mm-hmm.
It's not readily available unless you're pirating.
Yeah.
And if you want to support an author, it doesn't give you a whole lot of options. Well, that was depressing.
Yeah.
Try
harder, everyone.